welcome to another episode of the Community Rec Podcast. For today's episode, we're joined by Steve Jobin, the President and CEO of the Raritan Bay Area YMCA. Today we're talking about some huge progress his Y is making in the area, specifically of providing affordable housing in his community. It's a really great thing his Y is doing, so I can't wait to talk about it. But first, Steve, how you doing today?
Hey, John. Good morning. Thanks so much for the invitation. Really, looking forward to the discussion.
Awesome. We'll dive right into the topic today, which, as I mentioned, was some awesome programs and initiatives that your YMCA is doing with providing affordable housing in the community. So just kind of detail why your YMCA specifically wanting to get into this part of the community and develop these programs.
So, John, the biggest thing with our history of our Y is we were a 1912 constructed building in Perth Amboy, New Jersey. We're about 30 miles south of New York. We're located on the water, and it used to be, Perth Amboy used to be the capital of East Jersey way back when. And so as a migrant city, folks would come to the cities for industry, and our YMCA was a big old building built in 1912, cement brick structure, and was really a place where folks would come to find a clean, safe room to assist in the industry, and the methodology behind the scenes was to give men that came there, specifically at that time, physical activity and spiritual support, and really so those things became a social center. And RY had seen better days into the 90s and had a massive fire in 1997 and really burned to the ground. And so our board of directors at that time really took that as an opportunity to refocus and reimagine, before that word became real, reimagine what the Y could really be for our town. And we went into a partnership at that point with the city, and the city has built a new recreation facility, which the YMCA is the managing partner of. So we've got swimming pools and gymnasiums and an indoor track and community theater, all the health and wellness that a city really needs and deserves. So we're proud to be partners with the city on that realm. But as we got the building open in 2008, 2009, we really started to do more strategic thinking. And really what we found was that our board of directors, many of them were still involved since the fire and before, and really helping. At that time, there was a term called the indigent. It was really helping folks that really needed a hand up and a help up to really establish safe housing. So we found that was their passion point, and actually my history before coming to the Y was with the local housing authority. So we really kind of blended these over the years to say, to really define health more broadly. So if you think about social determinants of health, and you talk about poverty and the impacts on folks' health, chronic disease, much more prevalent in minority, low-income areas. You start to look at unhealthy, unsafe housing, and so we really redefined or defined health as in a very broad manner. So housing really became very important in that discussion, because we had a few fires in town, and unfortunately some tragedy through that, and we had some families, some people killed in fires, that they had wiring run up to attic space, and those kind of tragedies. And at that point we started really talking about housing policy, and we wrote some grants. We partnered with the city, and quite honestly, as the partner to the city, we also partner with everybody else in town. Our nonprofit partners, the local hospitals, police, fire, school districts, you name it. We don't do much alone. So So as we kind of started to look at housing as a real issue, we started to get into more food pantry work, and we partnered with a local church called God's Army Ministry, who ironically, their ministry became homeless when we first met them. But what we learned was that food insecurity and doing food pantry work allowed us to cultivate relationships with folks. And that trust is really super important if you're really talking about trying to move someone along a continuum of care to really solve big issues. So we really took on that, and we really readopted a philosophy called collective impact. And how could we get more people pushing in the same way to solve big issues? And so through some, a lot of intentional discussions, and some good timing with resources, and change in thinking coming out of COVID, we really redefined what we wanted to be to our community and what our community really needed from our organization and others. So that's kind of the background of it, to how we kind of got to today.
Awesome. I like that phrase, collective impact, and looking at it like that. And I also liked how you guys wanted to think bigger as far as the continuum of health, but then you were also answering community needs too with some tragedies that happened. So all that makes total sense of why your YMCA saw it fit to get into affordable housing and the different partnerships, which we'll get into in a little bit too. But for the next question, I had just kind of get into some of these exact programs and explain to the audience kind of the wide breadth of affordable housing your YMCA is offering.
Yeah, so 10 years ago, we bought our first building. We financed it. It was a two-story building in our downtown district, right in right on one of our main streets, and we purchased a rooming house to get back into that game. And when I say rooming house, it's much like a dormitory. So there's common bathrooms with single room occupancy rooms. So we bought a 20 room all male rooming house, and we have a first floor on that building, which was a retail space, which is now our case management center, as well as our food pantry. So being in the downtown district really is, we think, creates a lot more access, and also highlights that we can do different things in different sections of town. And different sections of town sometimes just have different needs. So we started with the rooming house, and then we started to get more phone calls about helping certain special populations. So the next project came up. It was brought to us by the County of Middlesex, and it was for a domestic violence survivor with 3 kids and in need of rapid relocation because of really as almost a safe house. So they had some grant money at the time. We accessed the grant money, we purchased the house, and we are able to give, since we don't have any debt and we leverage our nonprofit status with our tax exemption, we can then offer a rent at pennies on the dollar compared to a market rate rent. And our rents in central New Jersey are high, and property taxes are high. Cost of properties is high, and that combination is what drives up rental costs. So we did that, and then folks started to look at us a little differently, and so we ended up partnering with a group called Coming Home of Middlesex County, another nonprofit, which we created a joint venture, and we bought several other single and multifamily homes, and we really have used that as a model to secure grant funding, leverage our nonprofit status, and or leverage could be Section 8 vouchers in there if there is any debt, and that's in partnership either with the state or the local housing authority. So there's different ways to kind of manage it, But the real premise of our housing is permanent supportive housing. So this is not temporary. And in New Jersey, what permanent means is that they have a lease. They have security. A lease is simply a security document that allows that person to stay there in a stable environment, so that they can't be just kicked out, rushed out. They've got 6 weeks to get on their feet or get out. That's not what we do. We do know that our county specifically needs more shelter. That's a different type of housing, and we'll get there at some point. But permanent supportive housing is our model to make sure that folks not only get housed, but also get the supports to access resources that our team really specializes in helps access.
Terrific, awesome, amazing.
We're up to almost 103 units now within 10 years. And we have some new units coming on in the coming months.
Yeah, that's amazing. Congrats. I know there's so many different things that caught my attention, but like being debt free and then using as many different outlets as possible to make sure that this isn't offered in a place, at a time, I should say, where rents are going up everywhere. This is something that a lot of people are seeking, especially maybe some of the more underserved populations in the community. So splendid, amazing. You've mentioned different kind of entities that you're working with in order to make this possible. So I kind of want to combine a couple questions together. Just what are some of the entities that have assisted in this endeavor, and kind of talk about the importance of partnerships when it comes to nonprofit rec centers and how your organization has navigated the different kinds of partnerships that you have as well.
Yeah, I think it's creating partnerships and when I say everything we do, we have our child care centers in the public schools so that our kids can get after school care and before school care, because working parents need the care for their kids. They're working longer days, harder days, and they need the support. So partnering with the school district is a critical component of making sure that we support not just the students but also the families. Working with the city of Perth Amboy and solving chronic disease and making sure the kids don't drown. Those are all things that we can do and should do, and leverage those partnerships to do that. So our nonprofit partners, whether it's the Jewish Renaissance Foundation, whether it's the Puerto Rican Association for Human Development, whether it's the local hospital, whether it's the Central Jersey Medical Center, which is a federally qualified healthcare center. Those are all folks that we deal with regularly. Coming Home of Middlesex County is another one that I mentioned. Their expertise is in funding and financing of affordable housing. So the county government, local government, making sure that the players know what the needs are, so that when there is opportunity, we can move quickly. Some of these transactions are real estate based, and that's a whole different ball game in today's race to get vacant properties. All of our properties, when we get them, have to be vacant. We cannot make somebody homeless to house homeless, right? So when we look for properties, it's so we have some realtor partners that are also out there in the commercial market, just keeping an eye out for things that we might have some interest in. So making those matches, but it is critically important that when you're entering into these partnerships, there are times when the why is the leader, but we are also really super proud to be a second or third party and partner and have other organizations lead at the time when they have the capacity and the knowledge and the expertise, so that they can lead and we can support them. So it's a small town, but it is a city. We are 4 square miles. So everybody knows everybody, and we have to work together, or we would really just create a dysfunction to our residents that really wouldn't be helpful.
Well, it's often said the hallmark of good leadership is knowing when to lead and when at times to follow. So I think that's obviously was what makes such a good partnership. But I'm very fascinated about your community too. Like you said, it was pretty small, but pretty close to New York City. 30 miles away. So I just think it's so fascinating how something big like this can make a big difference in a small city. So I think that's fascinating as well. But speaking of your community, what's been the benefits that you've seen from maybe your results and maybe the feedback that you've seen from people that are using this affordable housing and are bettering their own health through this avenue?
Yeah, obviously when you can move somebody from a shelter to a home, and that home is beautiful, well maintained, clean, amenities, furnished. These are all things that that they are immediately impactful. And so yes, we can see mom in tears walking into the house and seeing something that she never thought she would ever see again. That's obviously that's the emotional stuff of why we do a lot of what we do. On the bigger scale, we know that affordability in housing costs is combined with childcare. And two things that the Y is really super involved with. So that when you start to combine those type of things and you start to make sure that, hey, if we can help mom get good quality childcare and we can work through the systems to get her that assistance, and we can make sure that her and her kids have a safe place to sleep, let's face it, that impacts the entire community in just in a multitude of ways. Kids that are living in unstable housing, specifically some intergenerational housing, there's an increase in child abuse, right? Like, so when so there's the impact on right, like there's these other kind of services that you're not thinking about when you first start doing them, but then you start to notice that we really can make impacts when you finally have that child do better in school because mom can cook breakfast, right? Like a simple thing that many of us take for granted, right? Like, so tying those things together to, increasing student achievement, right? Like those things all matter. When a child is sleeping better in that environment, they do better in school, right? Like all those kind of things, do they now get, does that child now engage in swim lessons and dance lessons and little league and all those other type of things because they're in a stable place and they're not moving from town to town to town? The answer is yes. So the ripple effects on that, I think, are generational, and that's why our organization, along with others, have really jumped in with 2 feet to say we can do all of it, and we can solve these big issues if we're all pushing in the same direction.
Terrific. Well, Steve, like I've said before, this is such a fascinating way of improving the community, but it's also something I've been hearing a little bit more about on my end. I've been hearing some YMCAs that are getting involved with realizing, as you just said, making a real difference and what that really means in the community, and so they're getting more involved with providing affordable housing. So what would be some of your final tips and advice to community rec leaders at large when it comes to getting into this sector and having success with it?
Yeah, I think really expanding your vision of what health is really, how you define it really can help create strategies of what those next steps are. Find partners that, if that's an area in your community that is an identified need, find partners that are either doing it and need help, or bring some folks together to start saying, hey, what if we started with this, right? And this could mean that it's food insecurity work. It could mean that you're going to work with a local developer and do supportive housing for domestic violence survivors, and you're going to give them free memberships to the Y, right? That could be your in kind to support those families. So those are some things that I think that we as a movement can do if you're not in that space. But I think the days of communities, wherever you're located, there's folks in every community that need this help. And it's not an urban thing anymore. This is something where it's suburban, rural, wherever folks are. Cost of living is going up. Cost of properties are going up, and our families really need support where we can't solve it for everybody, and we have to be clear on that. But if we take those couple of steps early, you might find some new partners that you never thought you'd be working with, and you may really be able to really impact those families.